While not restricted to Minnesota, many Wendigo myths and sightings originate from areas within Minnesota. The Minnesota Iceman is a sideshow exhibit, an elaborate hoax that duplicates a fake man-like creature frozen in a block of ice. It is displayed at shopping malls, state fairs, carnivals, all over the United States and Canada. The 1960s to early 1970s promoted as the missing link between man and Neanderthals. It was sold on eBay in 2013 and put on display in Austin, Texas. Hello everyone and welcome back to Sketchy Stories. I'm your host, Calvin Johnson. Today's episode we're going to be talking about the Minnesota DogMan. The Minnesota DogMan is an alleged cryptid sighted in various Minnesota counties. It is similar to the Michigan DogMan and the Beast of Bray Road. It could very well even be the same creature. Stories of the Minnesota DogMan have been around since before the white people have settled the nation. From the early native culture, it was lore in a lot of their folk tales. Our first story comes from Ottertail County, Minnesota. In one of the early months of 2009, a man reported seeing a dogman near Fergus Falls in Ottertail County. Here's how he described the encounter. I'll start off by saying that I've never really believed in any of these sort of creatures, but I saw something in early 2009 that really disturbed me and is making me change my mind forever. I was not under the influence of any drugs, and I have better than average eyesight. The lighting was near sunset, but I was still able to see clearly. So I'll get this underway and explain my story. Maybe someone can shed some light on this for me. I live in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, which is in west central Minnesota, about an hour drive from Fargo, North Dakota. My mother-in-law lives out in the county, about 3.5 4 miles to Fergus Falls. I was staying there while my wife and her mother went shopping in town. They called me and asked if I wanted to go to a 7 p.m. movie. So I left the house at about 6:30 p.m., 6:45 to meet them at the theater. About 2 miles from their house on a county road known as Wendell Road, along the Mustinka River, I saw 3 white-tailed deer. 2 of the deer were rather small, probably just yearlings and a larger doe, who I assumed was their mother. Me being the avid hunter, lover of wildlife, and future wildlife biologist, I stopped to look at the deer. So I should also mention that I hunt in the area and I've spent my whole life in the Fergus Falls area. The deer were following a small creek bed, which is in fact the Mustinka River. So there are hardly any trees except for maybe 1 or 2. Maybe because I didn't see it there because of the trees, but I noticed something crouching behind the tree on my side of the road, looking at the deer and, to my belief, hunting them. It just sat there looking at the deer, taking no notice of me, even though I was in my truck no more than 40 yards away. With a clear view, with nothing obstructing my view of it, it had one hand on the tree it was bracing itself with. What struck me as shocking was the fact that it seemed to be a 2-legged creature, not a 4-legged one. Its hands appeared to have opposable thumbs and were rather slender and long. Very unlike a wolf, the creature looked as though it stood upright. It would be over 7 feet tall, with a protruding muzzle, broad shoulders, a slender waist, thick muscular thighs, and being as there was no snow on the ground, I couldn't see the feet. He was deep, dark brown in color throughout the body. After several seconds of looking at the creature in shock, the deer ran off. Then something amazing happened. It looked right at me, as though blaming me for losing his mail. He just sat there looking at me and blinking, but not moving. This scared the hell out of me, so I hit the gas pedal and drove off. It was very dark after the movie, so I didn't much feel like trudging through the 3.5 miles of snow with possibly a monster lurking in the area, who was currently looking for a meal that I scared off. So at about 10 a.m., I went back there and walked down to the tree. Under the tree, there was no snow, but there were no tracks that I could see leading up to the tree. There were 3 tracks leading from my grandmother-in-law's field, which was hard, black dirt. If you know what a Minnesota field looks like, late winter, early spring, you can't make anything out of the dirt. The ground is too solid. The tracks I did find were only about 6 to 7 inches in length, but were clearly canine prints, with the exception of 4-toe looking marks in the snow. And that's the end of story 1. Story 2 comes to us from St. Louis County. The second story is from another unnamed man. He saw the creature in early September of the year 1999 on an Air Force base in St. Louis County. He said it looked like a DogMan. Here's the email to a DogMan encounter site that he sent. First off, I would like to keep my name confidential, just for the fact that this happened on an Air Force base and I don't know who reads this stuff. This happened sometime in September of '99. I forget the exact date. It was early in the month though. It was between 2 and 3 a.m. I was a security forces airman working 3rd shift on base patrol. Now mind you, this is on an Air National Guard base that I worked at full time. This is on the north side of Duluth, Minnesota, next to the international airport. North to northeast is nothing but large wooded areas. 3rd patrol is usually pretty boring, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and us full-timers work the skeleton crew, usually only 5 to 6 of us on 3rd shift. I was in the patrol truck doing my normal rounds, checking doors and fence lines. Late at night on the north side of the base was usually creepy enough when patrolling by yourself. I was on the road driving towards our baseball field when my headlights caught a pair of eyes reflecting back at me. They were almost eye level with me, and I was sitting in an F-150. Around this time, a few of the guys had been seeing a huge buck around the property, like a 16-pointer or something around that size. I was about 80 yards or so from it when I saw the eyes reflecting back at me, so I'm thinking, it was a big deer. I gotta go see this thing. So I hit the gas and started speeding towards the field. This is where it all happened so fast, it's almost hard to explain. There was a little slope behind the baseball field. It sloped down probably about 12 to 15 feet into a brush line. The brush went about 30 feet, then turned into a thicket tree line. The brush was probably about armpit high to me and pretty tough to traverse through, being so thick. As I turned into the baseball field and turned the truck towards the thing, I just caught the rear end of it leaping down the slope, below the sight line of my headlights. The thing was no more than about 20 feet ahead of me when it leaped, and all I got to look at was the back end of the thing. It was big. The best I can do to describe it is say that it was wolf, dog-like in nature. It had a long tail, longer than 2 feet, behind its legs, looked exactly like that of a dog's. Same with the back paws, but the paws were huge. They were bigger than my hands for sure. The hair and fur was wavy, yet matted and thick. The color was blondish or very light brown. I didn't notice any gray in it, but this all happened within about 2 to 3 seconds. I sat in my patrol truck for a couple seconds confused, thinking, I know what I saw, but it couldn't be what I thought I saw. So I hopped out of the patrol truck with my flashlight and my M16 rifle and walked to the edge of the slope. All I hear was a thing running through the woods in front of me, heading in a northeast direction. This thing sounded like a moose charging through the trees. It made a lot of noise. That's when I started to get really scared, thinking, if this is some sort of wolf or whatever it could be, my M16 isn't going to do a damn thing to this animal. So I jumped back into my patrol truck as fast as I could and headed back to the SF headquarters. I never told any of my other members about this, for fear of ridicule or being called crazy. There's no way I misidentified this thing. I'm a trained observer, an avid hunter, and have worked with animal rehabilitation with the MNDNR in the past. I know my animals and the North Woods extremely well. I saw what I saw, and that was the back end of a large wolf dog thing that basically had its eyes level with mine while I was in a patrol truck. The back end was definitely the end of a large wolf dog thing, larger than any largest deer or black bears I've seen. The points I remember the clearest were the tail and the back paws, as well as the texture and the color of the fur. This is my story. I have never told it to anyone in fear of ridicule. I swear to it to be the truth. Anonymous, early September of 1999, 2:30 a.m. And that was story number 2. Let me know what you guys think in the comments so far. I appreciate the feedback. Our third story is from another unnamed source. It was reported in the city of Long Prairie, the center of Todd County. And this is how the encounter went. I was visiting my grandmother up in Long Prairie, Minnesota. I was spending a week with her, mostly just to help her with whatever she needed help with. It was summer, and one early morning, before the sun was even up, I went outside to tend to the garden and maybe even get some squirrels for some squirrel dumplings for dinner. So I slung my semi-automatic assault rifle over my shoulder and headed out. I had just gotten me about 20 squirrels. My grandmother's place has a lot of squirrels. When all of a sudden, I picked up my last squirrel, and there I saw something, just on the edge of the woods behind my grandmother's property. I saw some humanoid dog thing. It never attacked me, it just sat there. So I fired off a couple shots at the creature. It yelped and ran off into the woods. I then went into the house and proceeded to call the local police department. They never found proof of what I saw other than a few paw prints, so they claimed I shot at a wolf. My grandmother was worried and confused by the events taking place, so at dinner she sat me down and asked me about what I saw. I told her the whole story. Strangely enough, she seemed to believe me. I showed her where I saw the thing and where I was when it happened. I never saw it again, but I've otherwise gotten over the whole ordeal. Alright guys, so that wraps up story number 3. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it for today. Thank you for tuning in. This didn't bring us exactly to 20 minutes. This last story was a little bit shorter than I thought, but I appreciate everybody that actually listened in, so comment down below, let me know if you have any stories. I'll leave a link and you can go ahead and email me your whole story, or we can talk back and forth and tell me what you want. And yeah, give it a like. If you enjoy this content, hit subscribe. Thanks. Peace.